This is WLBT Law Call.
Well, welcome to Law Call. I'm Morgan Dukes, and tonight we're talking about car and truck injuries. It happens. Accidents do happen to us all. And sometimes, it's just a minor thing. Other times it can be quite serious or even life-changing, but that's okay. We have two great personal injuries attorneys tonight to help us navigate our way through the problems that can come as a result of a car or a truck accident. So help me welcome Ms. Lorelei Harris from Porter and Malou. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing, Morgan?
I'm doing fantastic. Always good to see you.
Me
Always.
too.
All right. And we also have Harry McCumber with us from Morgan and Morgan. How you doing, Harry?
I'm doing fine. It's good to see you both.
Always good to see you, sir. And now that you're here, we have some questions, right? Emails have been sent in and people want to know what to do when they're in an accident. So I say, let's jump right on in and try to get as many answers as possible to those who need our help tonight. Our first question comes to us from Sherry. And Sherry wants to know, when you're in a wreck, how soon should you start talking to a lawyer? Do you need to make a report with your insurance company first? That's always a challenging area, Lorelei, because people want to know, what do I do first? Do I call my attorney? Do I call my insurance company? Do I take pictures? What do I do?
Yeah, well, I think you nailed it there with the pictures. I think pictures are very, very important. And I think oftentimes it's a best kind of practice to take some notes. Take some notes and document exactly what's happened, especially in those first couple of days. You may not feel as injured as you truly are immediately after the accident. Your adrenaline's going, and after a day or two, you find your neck might start to hurt a little bit more and your back a little bit more, especially if it's not a catastrophic wreck. I do think you should report an accident to your insurance company. You're probably obligated to do so per the terms of your contract with them, but I would not give a statement to your insurance company without speaking to your attorney. I don't think it hurts to contact an attorney as soon as you feel you need one. If your case isn't ripe for litigation yet, I think the right attorney will tell you that and will maybe allow you to get some treatment and kind of stand in the back until it is time to get involved.
Okay. And that's good information. So, Harry, what are your thoughts on pictures? I mean, first of all, I know you should take pictures, but should you post them on social media as so many people do?
Yeah. So a few things. Of course, I would say get a lawyer right away would be my response to the initial question. Of course, I'm biased about that, but you're at the scene, you're shaken up, you're surprised about what happened. It's if you can think to take pictures. Some people are more hurt so that they physically can't take pictures. But if you can, you want to take photographs, like you said. And if you can think to get the names of any witnesses that may be around, we all assume that a police officer or somebody's going to arrive and they're going to get all the information. Well, sometimes people don't stick around after a wreck and they're gone before the officer arrives. If you can try to get, names and phone numbers at least, that helps. But always try to get pictures if you can. And we always tell our clients, not only do you not post photographs of the scene or anything you've taken that day, but don't post anything on social media, because the insurance company, if later on, you start treating for a neck injury or back injury, and you treat it, a few weeks after the accident, and in the meantime, you're at a party or you're in a swimming pool or you're doing something, and you post it, and the insurance company gets a hold of that, they're going to say, well, you don't look too hurt, and now you're making a case, but here you're at a pool party, you're smiling, you're joking around, doesn't look like you're too hurt, and they take it out of context and they can use it against you. So I wouldn't post anything on social media. It can only come back to haunt you.
I agree. I think we've seen it and have heard about it so many times, like you say, in so many different cases. So thank you for that good advice. Once again,
they'll just take things out of context. I mean, even we all go about our daily lives. We do things and we're hurting, but we're not going to be, showing that we're in all this pain or grimacing all the time and so forth. They'll just turn into something that it's not. You just don't even need that headache.
That's a very good point. Very good point. Our next question comes to us from Paula. And Paula wants to know this evening, my cousin was hit by a tractor trailer 2 days ago. Do they need a special truck wreck lawyer to handle their case, or can any lawyer do it? I don't really understand how to tell who does what, or different kinds of lawyers. And I think Paula's question really speaks to a whole lot of people. A lot of people don't understand who does what. And, sometimes commercials can be very, very misleading. So who wants to tackle this one first?
I think Paula is a smart lady. I think that, you absolutely want a personal injury attorney, first of all, but you also want an attorney that knows how to handle not only car accidents, but 18-wheeler accidents. Those issues are very different, and the discovery or the evidence involved in an 18-wheeler accident, it's not the same as any other case. You immediately need to put the truck on notice to preserve stuff, the black box and maybe camera footage. And I've seen it happen where a person comes to us later and that stuff was not preserved and it's gone forever. And something that may have made the case actually was a big downfall to it.
Okay. So, Harry, let me ask you this about the black box. A lot of people don't understand that there is a black box on 18-wheelers. A lot of people only think when they hear black box, they always think of airlines or an airplane as a black box. But there's also black boxes now in the 18-wheelers. Let's speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, so, 18-wheelers fall under the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations put out by the U.S. Department of Transportation. You want a lawyer that's familiar with those rules and regulations because they cover everything from driver rest times or weights that the trucks are supposed to have, so on and so forth. But they also deal with, like you say, the black boxes. And you want an attorney that's experienced and already has experts on their staff that know what to get and what to look for and how to do the downloads. Not anyone can just do the download of the black boxes. And obviously, when an 18-wheeler accident happens, those insurance companies and those 18-wheeler companies, they have people on the scene almost immediately. They are taking measurements. They are taking photographs. They are taking witness statements. They do this all the time. It is way more involved than just your regular fender bender or two people getting into a car accident. You need somebody that's going to have those experts to be able to do the things like you're talking about, get the black box, know how to analyze it. It has everything from speeds. And I mean, it really tells a lot about that vehicle and how fast it was going at the time of impact, so on and so forth. And so that's why I think for 18-wheeler accidents, especially catastrophic type cases, you want a lawyer that has done a lot of them. Yeah, sure. I can do a medical malpractice case if I wanted, but I'm not going to, because that's not my area of expertise. I don't have the experts lined up. I would have to go out and find them. There's a lot involved and it gets very tricky. So get somebody who knows what they're doing is what I would say.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Get somebody who knows what they're doing. Harry McCumber of Morgan & Morgan, Lorelei Harris of Porter & Maloof. They know what they're doing, everybody. Hey, listen, stay with me. I'll be back in just a minute, and we're going to talk about what happens if you're behind the wheel of the car and something goes terribly wrong. Maybe it's not your fault. We're going to have some answers for you next. This is Law Call.
WLBT Law Call with award-winning broadcaster Tamika Smith and personal injury attorneys Tim Porter of the Jackson law firm of Porter Maloof, called one of the winningest firms in the United States, and Jackson personal injury attorney Rocky Wilkins, recognized as Mississippi Trial Lawyer of the Year by the Mississippi Association for Justice. Plus guest attorneys from across the state. Your rights, your calls, live. WLBT Law Call.
And welcome back to Law Call. I'm Morgan Dukes. And tonight we're talking about car and truck wrecks. Yeah, we've all had them, and hopefully yours wasn't very severe. You didn't have to go to the hospital. It didn't change your life. Preferably it was something minor that you and the other person can work out. But sometimes you have to call in an attorney. And we have two personal injury attorneys tonight that can help us navigate through these tough times. Lorelei Harris of Porter & Maloof and Harry McCumber of Morgan & Morgan. So thank you both again for being with us tonight and answering the questions, because they just keep coming in. But before we get back to email questions, Before the break, we were talking about the black boxes in 18-wheelers. A lot of people don't realize that they come now equipped with a black box in case something goes wrong. They can read the box, or someone can, a professional can read the box and give them more details of the accident. But Lorelei, you have a case that you were working on once upon a time that involved them being in automobiles. So tell us a little bit about that.
That's right. So a lot of people don't realize that your car is actually also equipped with a black box. And so, if you're requesting the black box from the other party, they might want to get it from yours too. And so your box will have certain information. It may be helpful. It may not be, depending on the facts. But yeah, most vehicles, newer vehicles, obviously, are going to have their own black box. Another thing that has come up recently too is the little plugins that your insurance company is offering. And so, they might say, hey, if you plug this into your car, we'll give you a discounted rate. And so I always wonder, how that might come back to help us in a case on down the road.
Oh, yeah. So what information they're gathering and all of that. So in your case of the black box situation with the car, I mean, how did it turn out? Did it turn out in the favor of your client or no?
Well, so these 18-wheeler cases are still ongoing. And so we have preserved the black boxes for the vehicle and the 18-wheeler. And hopefully, litigation continues and things will come out favorably for everybody involved.
Okay, then. Well, all the best to everybody involved. I totally agree with that. Okay, let's get back to our email questions. We're talking about car and truck wrecks, and Vance sent in a very interesting and specific question that I think people really need to know about. His question goes a little something like this. I heard about a wreck where one driver had a heart attack and lost control and crashed into somebody else. What happens if that happens because of circumstances that you couldn't control? Are you liable as a driver who had the wreck, or because they were traveling, or if somebody was texting or speeding or something like that? Is that a different set of circumstances? So I'm curious to know, Harry, what happens if something that happens beyond your control happens while you're driving, like a heart attack or a stroke? We hear about these things happening all the time. People go into diabetic situations and they're behind the wheel of a car and an accident happens. Who's to blame, or how do you handle a situation like that?
Yeah, these are called sudden medical emergency cases. And a colleague of mine here actually just settled a case 2 days ago where there was a claim of a sudden medical emergency. And in that case, you basically have to look at what is the alleged sudden medical emergency. So in the question, we have a heart attack. In this particular case that my colleague had, someone said that they had a severe migraine that ended up causing them to pass out and have the wreck. And what you want to look for, there are some people that drive that they have diabetic seizures, or they have a history of seizures. That's a little bit different than someone who has for instance, a sudden heart attack out of the blue that they didn't know of. So it's a case by case basis. You look at the person's medical history. I think you need to look at whether or not this is a person who's driving around that has recurrent seizures or things like that frequently. That's different than someone who literally just out of the blue has a medical emergency, because you don't want, everybody could driving a car that gets into a wreck and say, you know what, I passed out. There's nothing I could have done about it. And that would be a defense in every single case. Well, that's not the law. Okay. So we have to have some kind of something to go by in order to look at, well, the jury's going to hear the facts of this person has a history of, their medical condition of X, Y, and Z. Well, they knew or should have known. So you can still put fault on somebody, even though they have a seizure, for instance, if they had that kind of a medical history that's always recurring. But somebody who has something out of the blue, of course, it's going to be harder because there's nothing they could have done. So you really got to look at the circumstances and the medical history. And once they raise that defense, because normally, you get into a car accident, they say, well, you caused the wreck. They can't just go in your past medical history. But when you bring it up as a defense, you open the door. And so then the plaintiff can turn around and say, well, let's look at your past medical history to see if you've had any other incidents like this before.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's why they need to call you, Harry. That's exactly why they should give you a call in a case like that. Our next question comes to us from Shauna. And this is an interesting question because we've all been waved in to traffic by somebody. You know, somebody's always made a way for us. So here's her question. She says, if you're in heavy traffic and you're pulling into a busy road and another driver waves you in like it's okay, but you actually get hit, can you sue the first driver for telling you that it was all clear? Oh, no, we've all been waved in before. So is that a cool thing to do, to go back and sue that person after you've been hit?
Was that for me?
Well, take a stab at it, and then we'll give Laura a chance.
normally the person driving is responsible for their driving. So even if a person waves you on, the responsibility for making it safely is still on the driver. So, normally, no, I would say no. I mean, you're not going to. The person waving you on isn't, they're not any kind of, doesn't give you a pass just to be able to say, well, they waved me on and I pulled out, so it's not my fault. You still have to keep your vehicle under control and so on and so forth. So the driver is the primarily responsible person.
Okay, Lorelai, what
someone
say
waves
you?
Someone waves you on, you do so at your own risk. Let me put it to you that way.
That's right. Enter traffic at your own risk.
You do so at your own risk.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Now, the other driver doesn't have a duty to you.
Nope.
And I think that's the legal standard, if you will. They're not an expert. Now, if it's a traffic cop that weighs you into traffic, that might be a different story. But they don't have a duty to look twice or do the right thing for you. In fact, that duty is yours. To do the right thing. So yeah, enter traffic at your own risk.
Let me just say, the only exception to that is if it's a person whose job it is to be the person directing traffic. So, you always have logging companies or people, you'll see somebody out there with a vest. That's a little different because as Lorelai said, they're putting themselves in that position. But we're talking about just somebody in the road thinking they're a good Samaritan trying to help you out. No. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you both for clearing that up. Lorelai Harris, Harry McCumber. I'll be right back. I'm Morgan Dukes, by the way. We're coming right back with more of your questions and answers as Law Call continues. If you have further questions for Lorelai Harris, you can find her here in Jackson at Porter and Maloof. The telephone number is 601-957-1173. And you can also find Lorelai online at www.portermaloof.com. If you have questions for Harry McCumber, you can find him here in Jackson at Morgan & Morgan. The telephone number is 601-503-1654. And you can also find Harry online at www.forthepeople.com. And I want to thank you both for being with us tonight. This is good stuff. Great answers. We're talking about car and truck wrecks, and let's talk about a local problem that we have here that can definitely lead to a car or truck wreck, accident, breakdown, front end alignment, and a whole lot more. I'm talking about some of the various potholes in the city. All right, now all around Jackson, we see potholes everywhere. Have you had a case that has involved one that somebody has really damaged their car? Lorelai?
It happens. It's been some years since I've been contacted about a pothole case, believe it or not. And so, but it is an issue here. And I think, it goes to notice. And so obviously, if you drive that street every day and the pothole just keeps getting bigger and bigger, we talked about the duty earlier, and it's difficult to sue the city, but I think they have a responsibility to keep the roads safe. And so I think it can be done. But I do think you need to try to do your best to avoid those areas. But I'm Harry's office is closer to the downtown area. And so I'm interested to see what his experience with these potholes might be.
So Harry, is she really saying you're closer to all the potholes? Is that what she's really saying?
I think so.
Yes.
But, and I know we're running out of time, so I'll make it quick. I had a gentleman one time on a motorcycle. He was on a Jackson road in a not very well lit area. He wasn't familiar with the area. he did hit a pothole, and it caused him to wreck on his motorcycle. Actually, he was thrown from the motorcycle, suffered pretty serious injuries. Made a claim against the city, falls under the Mississippi Tort Claims Act, meaning there's certain protections that the city has because they're a governmental entity. One of the things I found out in doing it, there are certain things that the city must do, and they're called ministerial responsibilities. Certain things that the city, just because they're a city, has to do. Then there are other things that are called discretionary. And unfortunately, when they get around to filling potholes is discretionary, meaning, yeah, they're supposed to fill potholes, but when they get around to doing it and what potholes they decide to fill before other potholes is up to them. And so therefore, I can just tell you, it's a very hard case to make.
Oh, gee whiz. In the meantime, everybody drive safely. When you see the pothole, just go around it if you can. Gee whiz. Okay. Speaking of going around, our next question comes to us from Carla and Charla. And Charla's question has to do with something coming around us. In this case, an 18-wheeler. She says, I was hit by an 18-wheeler truck while sitting at a light, and he was making a really wide turn. Am I to blame for not giving him enough room? His insurance guy actually tried to tell me that. Now, like Charla, many of us have been sitting there at the light when that truck has made that wide turn, and we've been saying, oh God, is he going to make it? So is there really a case like that? I mean, how do you handle that situation? Lorelei?
This question, I looked at this question before we started, and I wrote a note that said, because I think it's laughable. I think that's absolutely outrageous that the insurance company would try to place blame at you as you sat at the light. No, if you were in your lane,
you were just in your lane. Okay, yeah, all right. And Harry, I have to believe he will say the same thing. If you're in your lane, you just stay in your lane, right?
Yeah,
okay.
That's why it's important when you pull in these turn lanes. Don't go past that white line. Sometimes
that's right.
Well, now you're into their territory. Always make sure you stop where you're supposed to stop, where that white line is, because if they make that turn, they don't have that argument. You've cut them out.
There you go. There you go. Harry McCumber, Lorelei Harris, thank you so much for being with us tonight for this edition of Law Call. Hey, listen, I'm Morgan Dukes, and on behalf of all of us here at Law Call, we bid you a very good night. Good night, everybody.